All right, ladies and gents, finally had to troubleshoot the mic, and we were able to get it working again. So let's look at this one here, 7.9c. We're talking about composite figures. So it tells you there a figure is created by using 4 semicircles and a rectangle. Well, if you look at your formula chart, you'll find there that it tells you, okay, rectangle. Well, we look here and we see there's a rectangle, or parallelogram. We use base times height. So then I'm going to put here, okay, for a rectangle, I'm going to use base times height. Now, there's no one here, there's no formula here for a semicircle, but there's one for a circle. We either use area for a circle, we use pi times radius squared. And so what does that mean? Well, we have area is equal to pi times radius squared. And so pi is 3.14, unless it says, you know, closest, well then we can approximate pi to 3. Okay, if it says this is closest, let's round. Instead of using pi to be 3.14, we can even get closer to approximate it to a whole number, which is 3. And so we're going to put, okay, so that's 3 times radius times radius. So let's look at the 4 half circles. Well, if I think about it, wouldn't these 2 halves make one circle if I put them together? Okay, and wouldn't these 2 halves here make one circle? So I don't have to divide the half circles. I can use this equation because this is for a whole circle. Well, I do have a whole circle here. I do have a whole circle here. I also have a rectangle. It says there you have a rectangle, and the rectangle is this. Now to find the rectangle is just what are the dimensions? Well, if this is 10, that means this is 10. And so if it's just base times the height, well then it's just 10 times 18, and that'll give me 10 times 18, that'll give me the area of the rectangle, centimeters squared. And so now I gotta find the area of the circles. Well, this circle here, what does the 10 represent? If it goes all the way from one end to the other side, okay, that means that it goes through the center, but it goes from one end to the other side. That represents the diameter. So the diameter is 10. We don't need the diameter, we want the radius. And the radius we know is half of the diameter, so that would be 5. And so then I would just multiply 3 times 5 times 5. Okay. 3 times 25 will give me 75. That's these 2 guys. Now I need to find this guy. Again, you're going to use A equals pi times radius squared. Okay, radius, we need to find the radius first. Well, if it's from one end to the other side and it crosses the center, that's considered the diameter. So the diameter is 18. That means that the radius is 9. And so we're going to put the radius is 9. So now we're going to use pi. We said we're going to approximate to 3 because of this word here, closest. And so we're going to put it here, okay, 3 times 9 squared, or 3 times 9 times 9, which is 3 times 9 times 9 is 81. And 81 times 3 is what? 243. Once I have the area
Annette Castro, please report to the office. Annette Castro, please report to the office.
All the figures, we add them together. So now I have the area of the circle, the 2 half circles. I have the area of the rectangle, okay, and I have the area of the other 2 half circles. And so now I'm just going to add them together. So add them together and you'll get your answer. And you get a close answer. So it's 243 plus 180 plus 75. That'll give me 19. That's 498 square centimeters. Now the reason being that the answer is not exactly as mine is because we approximated Since it said closest, we use pi for 3. If I would have used 3.14, I would have got really close to this answer, or exactly that answer. But as you can see, there's no other number even close to this. So I know that that has to be my answer. It has to be the one that's closest to it. And it has to be a little more because we use 3 instead of 3.14. So my answer would have been C, or it is C. Okay. Let's look at the next one there. Jody designed a composite figure, again, consisting of 2 3/4 circle, 3/4 congruent circles. So 2 3/4 congruent circles. The radius is 6. So it's telling you that the radius is 6. So radius equals to 6. So that means that the radius, if this was the whole circle, this is the radius because it's from the center to the outside. So that's 6. Well, it's the same thing here. That's from the center to the outside. That's 6. Okay. Here again, same thing. If I had this whole circle, it'd be like that, but I don't have the whole circle, but that's 6. And so now I think about it. I have 2 3/4 circles. Okay. That means I have this. If I section off these pieces like this, okay, because this is a quarter, so we divide it by 4. So I divide the circle by 4 because I have 4 pieces. 4 quarters make $1. Well, if you have 3/4, okay, so now that means I have this. I am missing this piece, and then I have this other one here. I am missing this piece here. So you have 2 3/4 circles is what you have. Well, to find this answer, you need to find the area of a whole circle first. This is the equation for a whole circle. You don't have a whole circle. But from this, you can figure out, okay, how to find each section. And then from here, you can find the area of a whole circle. But I want the area of each section. So I would have to divide this equation, because that's a whole circle, but I want the area of each section of the whole circle. So there's 4 sections, so I'm going to divide by 4. And we're going to use pi approximately 3, because it says there which of the following best represents. So we can use 3 and still get really close to the answer. And so then I have there 3 times the radius squared. They told me the radius was 6. That's what they said here. The radius of each is 6. So I'm going to put 6 there. And so 6 squared is just 6 times 6. So 3 times 36 divided by 4. Now there, can you mentally
Miss White, please come by the
divide
office. Miss White, please
36
come by the
divided by
office.
4? Can you mentally divide it? And you should. And you should say that's 9. And so that means that 9 times 3 is 27, and 27 square inches. What does this 27 square inches represent? Remember, you divide it by 4. This is a whole circle, but you divide it by 4 because you wanted to know what each section represented. So that means that each section is 27. So that means that you put 27 here, 27 here, 27 here, 27 here, 27 there, and 27 there, because each section was 27. That's why you divided by 4. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. So I'm going to multiply 27 times 6. 7 times 6 is 42. 6 times 2 plus 4 is 16. 162. Once again, your answer, exact answer is not there. But the only reason is because we used an approximation. Oh, sorry. We used the best represents. Best represents, that's why we use pi as 3. Okay. Let's look at a few more. I won't do all of them. Okay. Again, look at this one here. Which of the following describes the area of the composite figure? This is not hard. You have a rectangle. Okay. Rectangle right there. That's a rectangle. It says you have 2 congruent triangles. This is right there. So I have a triangle and I have another triangle, and they're both congruent, so they're the same. So once you find one, you find both. Well, the rectangle is just base times height. So base times height, and you find your answer. And then let's look at the triangle. Well, the triangle is base times height divided by 2. Well, base, what does this measure? Well, if this is 20, that's a parallel line. They're parallel lines. By rule, parallel lines are congruent. So this is also 20. And so that means that's my base. So 20, what is the height? Well, the height always hits the base at a right angle. And if I zoom it in, you'll notice right there that this line and this imaginary line coming down, they're perpendicular. What does that mean? Perpendicular, that means they create a right angle, a 90-degree angle. I can't use these two because that's an acute angle. I can't use this, guys, because that's an acute angle. So my base and my height have to be perpendicular. That means they create a 90-degree angle. So that's my height. And so it's just 20 times 3, which is 60 divided by 2, which gives me 30 square feet. Well, if that's 30 and you have two congruent triangles, that is also 30. Well, that means 30 and 30, and then what do you get here? Well, base times height, 20 times 6. So 20 times 6. Multiply those two, what you get, you add it to these two guys, and you get your answer. Okay. The next one there, 4. The rectangle has a width of 10 units and a length of 24 units. Okay, so a width of 10, a length of 24. What is the area of the unshaded part? So they want the area of this guy. And when you see that, what is the area of unshaded part? When you have shaded and unshaded, always remember you're gonna have to subtract the areas. You're gonna have to subtract the areas. So for example, here we can find the area of the whole rectangle. Well, the whole rectangle is everything there. It's all this. That's the whole rectangle. So it's just base times height. So the rectangle is just base times height. That's all you got to do. Base times height. And then subtract it. Look at the triangle. The triangle is still, look, if I do it this way, well, the triangle is now upward, and that's the imaginary line coming down. Well, again, this and this have to hit it at a right angle. They have to create a perpendicular line, and they do. Now, if this is 10, well, sorry. If this is 10, well, this is parallel to that, and that means that this is also 10. And so now I know that, well, my base has to be 10, my height has to be 12. So then you have your triangle there, base times height divided by 2. So base times height divided by 2. What you get here, you subtract it from this, and you'll get your answer. Okay, number 5, lo mismo, same thing. You have a rectangle. Look at the pentagonal figure with the dimension shown in the diagram. What is the area of the figure? So they want the area of everything. So you're gonna have to add. You have a rectangle, okay? You have a triangle right here. Okay, we have trouble sometimes. The rectangle shouldn't give you trouble. This is just base times height, that's all. Well, look at the triangle. What two numbers are you going to use to find the area? Well, remember, your height and your base must touch each other at a right angle. So if I zoom it in, you'll see there, these two guys form a right angle. If I look over here, these two guys, that's an acute angle. Not this guy, but this guy over here. That's an acute angle. Here, these two guys, that's another acute angle. And so the only sides that hit each other at a right angle is the length 12 and the length 5. So that's what I'm going to use as my base and height. Now, some students are like, well, which is the base, which is the height? Well, if I have the triangle like this, some students say that's the base. Well, if I have the triangle like this, then they say, well, that's the base. Well, think about it. You're multiplying the two numbers. Does it really matter which one you're using as base and height? As long as you remember that the base and height must touch each other at a right angle, you'll get this answer. So base times height divided by 2, and then what you get added to this, and you get your answer. This other one here, to the nearest tenth of a square foot, Find the area of the figure. This is the figure, so that means you're going to add. That's what that means. So then I'm going to add. Okay, so I need this. That's the rectangle. Rectangle, we use base times height. We have a thing that looks like a circle, but it's just a piece of a circle. Now, if I draw a whole circle, here, I don't even have that. But if I do this, if I section it off into pieces, that looks like one piece. That looks like that. That's what that looks like. That's what I have here. Because if I make this complete circle, this is what I have. Okay? If this is 10, that's the radius because it's from the edge to the center. So my radius is 10. Okay? If that's 10, well then what does this measure? Well, it's also 10 because it's parallel. And so that means that we're going to use pi times radius squared. It doesn't say best, so we're going to use 3.14. So pi is, I'm going to put there, pi is approximately 3.14. 3.14 times the radius squared. We said the radius was 10. 10 squared. But we're going to have to divide because this equation here is for a whole circle. We don't have a whole circle, we have a quarter circle. I just want to know what one piece is. So we divide by 4. Once you get this answer, you add it to whatever you get over here when you multiply base times height. And you get your answer. Another one here. Number 7. If you look there, you have a composite figure. The trapezoid and the triangle have congruent heights. Okay, what does that mean? The trapezoid and the triangle have congruent heights. That means they're the same. So if I trace this trapezoid, that's my trapezoid, and the triangle is over here on the side. It's telling you that the heights are the same. Well, if this is the height of the triangle, because this must be the base, because that imaginary line that comes down the middle and makes a right angle is the height. So if this is the height, that's 12. Well, then this line here must also be 12 because it's the same height. And how do you know this is the height? Once again, look at the angle that's created here. That's an acute angle. Look at this angle. That's an obtuse angle. If I look at these two guys, that's an obtuse angle. If I look here, that's an acute angle. But if I look at this imaginary line and this base, that's a right angle. If I look at this guy, imaginary line and this base, that's a right angle. So that means that I'm going to use that as my height. Now if you look at the trapezoid, area of a trapezoid, we have it here. We're going to use this equation. I like to rewrite it just a little, makes a little more sense to me. I like to put, okay, the trapezoid is base 1 plus base 2 in parentheses times the height divided by 2. And so now, what are the bases? Well, the bases are opposite each other, and they're touching, and the height touches both bases. So base 1, I can say is 18.5. Base 2, I can say is 10.5. The height touches both bases, so it's 12. And so I'm gonna substitute these numbers into my equation. Base 1 was 18.5 plus base 2, 10.5 times the height divided by 2. And so now 18.5 plus 10.5 is 29. 29 times 12 divided by 2. Okay, 29 times 12 divided by 2. And so now, can you mentally divide 12? Oh my God. Postpone. Can you mentally divide 12 divided by 2? You should. You should say that's 6. And so then 29 times 6 will give me the area of this trapezoid. 9 times 6 is 54. 6 times 2 is 12 plus 5 is 17. So then my trapezoid is 174 centimeters squared. And so now you got to find is the triangle. We've already done a triangle. Base times height divided by 2. Base times height divided by 2. Find the area of this guy and add it to this, and you'll get your, and then plug in your answer here. Okay. One more, I'll do one more. Well, I'll just set you up for this one. Number 9, a composite figure shown below that consists of a rectangle and a right triangle. Which of the following describes the area of the composite figure? Okay, so you have a rectangle and you have a triangle. Okay, so then what is the area of the rectangle? Again, base times height. And then if this is 7, well, guess what? This is 7 also. This is not a right angle. This is not a right angle. That's a right angle right there. So I'm going to use here is area is equal to base times height divided by 2. Base times height divided by 2. Get the both answers to both of these and add them together. Okay, number 10 there. Look at the composite figure below. It consists of 3 rectangles. The two smaller rectangles are congruent. So this means they're the same. Son iguales. Okay, and so think there. You have a 3 by 6. The smaller ones are the same. So that means that this guy is the same as this guy. Okay, so and all of these are going to be found by base times height. That's it. And then the big rectangle also base times height. So if this is 6, well, this is also 6. If this is 6, this is also 6. Okay, if this is 3 here. That means this is 3. That means this is 3. So think there. Base times height. Base times height. Base times height. You need to know what this measures to get the rectangle in the middle. Hopefully this has helped you. And before we finish, what was the last thing I need to do here? Oh, yeah, we just need to check who's the best team, you know. Porque después hay unos que no entienden. And so we, and of course it's going to land on Chivas, you know. But we knew that already, right? All right, adios. Have a nice day.